over those years, the most common phrase I've heard is this. This is the most common phrase that keeps on coming up again and again and again. When people start to go numb, you've killed their spirit. You've killed it. You've killed that person. It's murder, right? It's murder of the spirit. Now that's happening all over. The biggest crime is you knowing there's a problem, and in a year's time, you're in the same problem. I mean, that's not even a crime. That's just stupidity, right? Why would you allow yourself to suffer? You can change and improve the situation.
Welcome to another Martial Mind Power podcast. And on today's episode, we have something very, 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 very special for you. So first, this is going to be amazing. Look at this, right? Not one, okay? Not two, not three, but four. Sifu Lak Loi, what's going on? Fourth book. That's amazing. I gotta. It must be it's a record for me. Like, working with someone, knowing someone for such a long time to be pulling out the fourth book, right, is just amazing achievement. So, firstly, congratulations on that achievement. Like, how does that feel?
Thank you so much, JT, for that, and welcome to all the listeners and viewers. So, how does it feel to have launched my fourth book? It feels like birthing something and putting it out into the world, because all the books that we've put out into the world, they're all about helping people to cultivate self-mastery in some way, shape, or form, and apply that in both their personal lives and their professional lives. So each individual can put their best side forwards. So when you, as I said, birth something into the world, that entity, that living entity, now that's come into the world, now has a job to do, and transformations to make. So this living, breathing book, essentially, you might just think, it's just a book, made out of paper, comes from wood, and it's got no consciousness or anything like that. But in this book, it contains knowledge and wisdom from many years of my experience and other people's experience, that can help completely transform people's personal, professional lives. So, so what that feels special, like giving birth to anything. Only a mother could tell you what that would feel like. It feels special. It feels exciting, and the feedback that I've been getting from family and friends and people that have seen the book and bought the book, and loads of people pre-ordered the book as well, has been really positive. So when you feel that in your heart, you know that you've done something right, and that it's going to have the intended positive effect that you want to create in the world. So yeah, it feels very nice.
So do you know what? It's like I was so excited about just being on this podcast that normally we're saying welcome, hello, all these kind of things, and I just going straight into it. I didn't even tell everybody that you're Sifu Lak Loi. And I'm
Don't worry.
So Sifu, like, obviously the first thing that sticks out about this book, right, is the title. Yeah. I hate my effing job. Like, what comes to mind is there was a book by Bruce Lee, which was called Striking Thoughts.
Yeah.
Yeah. And there's a compilation of quick, fast words relate to Bruce Lee sharing about things in life and personal development, things like that. So I just felt when I saw that title for the first time that, whoa, what a striking thought. Let's start with that. Come on, what's with the title? What's going on here?
So I think, I mean, since 2000, for the last over 23 years, I've been project managing, program managing, uh, taking care of people, looking after people, guiding, directing them in their careers, in their jobs, in in their deliverables, and so on. And over time, having been fortunate enough to have worked for many blue chip IT companies in investment banking and for investment banks as well. I've been afforded the opportunity to work with a huge variety of people and on many projects, from mainly medium to global enterprise, large scale complex IT programs. And as a consequence, there's been huge teams involved. So a lot of interaction with a lot of people. And when you're working with a lot of people, you get to hear a lot of the positives and the good stuff that's going on, but you also get to hear a lot of the negative stuff that's going on as well. And having to deal with that, having to deal with issues. I've always said that project management is people management. And when you're managing people, you're essentially also managing their emotional states. So over those years, the most common phrase I've heard is this. This is the most common phrase that keeps on coming up again and again and again. And you know what? A few years ago, I thought to myself, you know what? There's patterns to this. There's a repetitive issues that are circling around again and again and again. Isn't there anywhere people can go to get help?
Mm.
And the answer to that was no. And I thought, what? Like, this is this is a pandemic, right? When I tell you the stats, and it depends on which studies you look at. So in the book, we've got reference to a couple of studies, and the studies say anything from 70 to 85% of people that are working are unhappy, and that's a huge.
How much? Repeat that again.
70 to 85%.
Wow.
Now, recently, a huge IT company, I'm not going to mention the name, a huge IT company. Everyone knows this company. And I mean, everyone knows this company. There's no one in the world that's using any tech that doesn't know this company. So you can figure out for yourself. I did a study and brought in an independent consultant to do a study on job satisfaction, essentially. And this company, this consultant realized and reported that 95% of all of their resource base were unhappy in their job.
Wow.
I'm sorry, but you cannot ignore that.
Wow.
That is a horrific statistic. And this company, if you knew who it was, and again, I'm not going to mention the name because we're not here to denigrate any organizations, is a huge tragedy. So I decided that I wanted to do something for people that are suffering in their jobs, and I was compelled to write this for those people. Not only would it serve them, but if anybody goes through any issues, it can go to the book.
Was there a particular moment, right, that sticks out for you where you decided, why did you write this book? Like, well, is there like a moment to say, this is why I'm writing it?
Well, actually, part of it came from my brother. My
Mm-hmm.
brother, he's an amazing man. Really hardworking, super intelligent. Chartered accountant. He's an FD for a really large organization, and um, he was complaining about some things, and there was a bunch of different things, and I think one of the biggest compulsions was to write something to help him, because I wanted to help him as my brother. But that he was just one of the catalysts in the whole process. There is no one significant event
Mm-hmm.
um, that triggered me to write this. It wasn't like, that I was personally going through something that made me write this. It wasn't anything like that. It was an accumulation of seeing and working with people that were suffering with things, hearing, just listening to what's going on with other people in the teams that I'm working with, in teams, supporting teams, in teams that are outside of our programs and projects as well, that are also going through similar things. And I was like, surely there's got to be a better way to do this. So is a collection of things over time. But like I said, just to put something out there to help my brother was one of the biggest things. So if you're listening to this, if my brother's listening to this, without much love, and and therefore it's something that can help everybody, and because everybody seems to go through something. In my martial arts class, I asked my students, who has ever suffered in their job, and everyone put their hand up. 100%, 100% across the board. So there's we all go through challenges in our both our personal lives and our professional lives. And sometimes the challenges in our professional lives affect our personal lives. And sometimes the challenges in our personal lives affect our professional lives. And, it's not as if we haven't got enough, to deal with as it is, that, people could do with a little bit of hand holding, a little bit of comfort to say, you know what, it's okay. We've got some ideas that can help you.
Yeah. It's interesting because, like, I would imagine, I'm just like guesstimating, if you like split your day up, probably around 70% of your day, your working life is pretty much work related, right?
Yeah.
Like it's the most dominant thing in the majority of people's life who are actually working are doing. And it makes sense that obviously we got our own reasons why we go to work. The main core thing is money and income and all that kind of stuff. And there's so much related in regards to that. Like sometimes people want to do the work, but they can't because of whatever's going on, like dynamics at work. Some people are doing it just for the money. Some people are doing it for a stepping stone and all sorts of stuff. So all these little different scenarios come about. So it's I think it's something that's very useful. I tell you why it's useful. I admittedly haven't read it all. Yeah. Okay. But I've started the process. And as I was going through it, I looked through, obviously you read the title and you think, oh crap, what's this book going to be like? What's it actually going to talk about? Yeah. But there's a very interesting subtext, which basically says, turn your hate into love. Right. And that makes you think, oh, okay, this is interesting. So as I went through it, scanned, went through all the like contents, see what the topics were, started to look through the different pages. It became very apparent to me straight away that this book feels like it's like a manual for the workplace. It looks like it's addressing work dynamics. Yeah. And there are things in there which I thought, hang on, it just brought back memories when I was in the workplace, and all of the things you've listed, I thought, holy crap, like that's gone through my mind. Like all of those things have gone through, or I've seen it in the workplace. So let's talk a bit about that, because it's not a book that's gonna like for employees to be worried about, or anybody comes across to think, oh, what's coming? It's actually something that somebody would pick up, read, whether you're an employee or a employer, and actually understand work dynamics so you can actually do better in your job.
That's
Am I
right.
correct in saying that? Because I've just got that just from scanning the book.
That's right. You've picked that up spot on, and
Mm,
I'm glad just by scanning the book you've come to that conclusion, because so a book with such a powerful title like that, and I don't like to use the HATE word, yeah, because it's quite a harsh word. So for
mm,
somebody to get to the point where they hate something or someone, that's a really strong emotion. It's a
mm,
really strong and a really negative emotion that can start having negative effects on your body, mind, emotion, spirit. Um, so I'm glad you picked up on the love element. And also just to kind of elaborate on the subtitle, which is, if you can see it here, I don't know if you'll pick it up on the camera here. Uh, there it is. It's like turn your hate into love. I'll read it out because it'll be easier. Situational strategies for achieving optimal career and business success for employees and those employers that give a damn. And again,
mm,
a little bit of wordplay there, but the idea on where employers give a damn is, um, is about facilitating positive transformational change, right? So, so what are we trying to achieve with this book? Having scanned the book, you picked up the fact that it's not about hate, and it's about being better in your job, whether you're an employee or an employer. Well, 100%. So how do you do that? Well, one of the other things that you've already mentioned is you've related to a whole bunch of situations that you've experienced in your career, in your business, in your job. Because now you're running your own business, but you can still experience these things in your own business. It doesn't necessarily mean that if you're running your own business, your job is your business. If you're working for somebody else, then your job is somebody else's business, but you're in their business of making their business, right? So either way, if you're doing something of service to someone, expending time, effort, energy into that, that's a job. And as a consequence of that, we go through different challenges through different phases of our careers, our businesses. And this book is trying to help people when they face certain situations by offering them, first of all, relating to the reader about what is they're experiencing in a given situation. And we can talk about some of the situations. There's well over 70 in there, right? So relate to the what I call the hate people are experiencing given that situation. And then it talks about how can you transform that hate into love. And the way I've laid out the book is the love section. There's a hate section and there's a love section. The love section is split into two divisions. One's for employees, one's for employers. Now,
So wait, so you've basically given the situation and scenario, and then alongside that, you've also given the remedy
yes.
for both the employer and the employee.
Yes.
Wow.
So you call it a remedy, and the idea is hopefully that you address things at the root, right?
Mm,
So you're not relieving the symptoms of the issue, but actually trying to take preventative measures in order to cut the problem at the root, so that the problem doesn't continue, not just for one individual, but for everyone involved. Whether it's on a team basis or a department basis or an organizational basis. And as a consequence, it can help you improve things within that organization. So, advice for both employees and employers. Now, like anything, this there's no such thing as a total cure. And the reason for that is it's all dependent on the bespoke circumstances within an organization. So there could be more factors that are feeding into any given situation. But if you take that situation in isolation, you can use those actionable tasks to help create some positive transformational change. And that should, number one, give you clarity on, first of all, the issue that you're experiencing, and then how to transform that and alleviate the hatred, but transform that into a love state. So ultimately, what we're trying to do with this book is get people from "I hate my effing job," so I get them from there to "I love what I do and I do what I love." Because when people are educated, they're inspired and empowered, they move into that state. And when they do that, then all of a sudden, everything changes. Right? And I think it's important to really point out, what is, for an employer's standpoint, what is the fundamental benefit for a book like this, and how will it help employers? Well, I encourage any business owner, any employer, any senior manager, anybody in leadership that is commanding a team of people, that has a resource base that they're responsible for, to read this book. The reason for that is simple. When resource attrition or employee attrition is the biggest problem that any company will face when it comes to employees being unsatisfied with their jobs or unhappy in their jobs. When employees leave, it costs a minimum 1.5 times their salary to replace that person.
Wow.
If you've got 85%, or in that large IT company's case, 95% of employees are unhappy in their jobs, you've just got a huge expense about to freaking face, So the idea is to try and avoid that. So, if, let's say, you're on 100,000 a year, well, you leave an organization, well, that organization is going to have to spend 150 to rehire someone into your position. That is an expensive problem. Multiply that by across the organization, 85% of the organization, that's an expensive issue. 95% of the organization, that's even more expensive. Now, in terms of budgetary allocations, resource costs tend to be the highest cost for any organization, right? Property is usually up there as well, but resource cost is usually the highest. Now, if that's the highest budgetary allocation that you have in an organization, and that's threatened by people leaving and you having to pay 1.5 times to rehire people, that's an expensive problem to have. So what that alludes to is organizations and people that are business owners, employers, senior management, leaders in leadership positions cannot afford to ignore the fact that their employees are unhappy, right? And if companies ultimately are about the bottom line, let's face it, you cannot ignore the simple thing that's on your doorstep. It's not actually not even on your doorstep, inside, under your roof. Yeah. This is an in-house pandemic, right? Across every organization, right? It needs some serious consideration. It needs to be looked at in a whole new way.
And talking about pandemic, I mean, that opened up a whole other conversation in how people actually, it was almost like they got time to just reflect on what they were doing.
Yeah.
And it was almost like what's important to them came to the surface.
Yeah.
Right. And a lot of people we know in Inner Circle, we did this Feel Good Friday event that was happening every Friday. for Zoom conversations. And when we were on those, we were listening to what people were saying. And the thing that was coming up was like, what do they do? How do they go about doing the next year? Or how do they get into a place where they actually enjoy what they're doing? And all that stuff started to come up.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's very, very important what you say that. I was just, when I was scanning through the book as well, I think one of the other important areas, which I think this book could be so influential, right? I got my tongue twisting happening with the words today, is students. Right. When I was going through the chapters and looking through it, I thought, oh my goodness, had I known all this, like had I at least had a reference point to these things
Yeah.
when I was in the workplace in that scenario, I would have had a much better understanding of how to potentially deal with situations and scenarios. Because one of the things is like, as students, right? Like, you're excited, you want to go into the workplace, you're applying for jobs and all that kind of thing. And you come into the workplace and, if you're fortunate to get the kind of job that you want, that's brilliant. But if you're not, you go into that scenario and then you're hit with all of these work dynamics and things that go on in the workplace. And sometimes you don't even know what to do about it.
Yeah.
Right. And that in itself can be a stress where, having something like this can open up your mind to, hang on, there's another way that I can actually address the problems, the situation that we create. Because sometimes it's like, there's like undercurrents, right? There's like silent stuff going on. Whether that's because something hasn't been expressed properly, whether you've just been put in a position where, things are happening in the way you didn't expect it to happen. Yeah. Those kind of things can kick off. And this, I feel, is like so powerful to say, look, these are all the things you could potentially expect in the workplace.
Yeah.
Right. And then give you, like you said, it gives you direction as to what you can do about it. That, hats off to you, man.
Thank you. And again, it's, every person that I've worked with has been a teacher in this process, helping me recognize and realize these situations that are occurring again and again and again and again. And just to give our readers an idea, of some of the kind of situations that we're referring to, it could be things like how to deal with toxic people. It could be, okay, let me give you another one.
Another one I saw in there was about pay.
Oh, yeah.
Issues around pay.
Yeah. Right? Issues around pay, do you feel underpaid and undervalued? Is there, as part of pay as well, do you have no future vision and direction? For instance, things like, are you getting burnt out? Are you experiencing toxic practices in your organization? I mean, the turning the hate into love section is split into subdivisions, and they kind of go through different situations that are categorized by situations that are related to people, place, position, performance, practice, pay, profits, and the planet. Okay. So, we have to talk about Mother Earth as well, because there's, where everything that we are is as a consequence of Mother Earth. So, we have to pay honor and respect to Mother Earth as well. So these huge factors. So all the issues are related to those categories. So the way to tackle this book is, first and foremost, is read the introductory chapters. So there's a short introduction, but after that, I go into talk about why people hate their effing job, and that goes into some depth, so people understand the different reasons why people feel like they hate their job, right? And the difference between people hating work and hating their job, how people can spot people that they're working with that are in a state of hating their jobs, and why people and the reasons that people actually hate their job, a whole list of things. And the most important thing is then, a lot of people stay in jobs that they hate. So the next chapter talks about why people stay in the job that they hate. The cost of hating the job is, we've just mentioned part of that right now. You mentioned, the pandemic, people had time to contemplate and figure out, what they really wanted in life. So there's a section in why people stay in a job that they hate that's called "There's More to Life," and it actually has a reference to the feedback and the outcomes that came from the pandemic as a consequence of that, which actually gave us some really deep insights into things. The big quit or the big resignation, as so that plays into that quite strongly, because that was a huge dynamic that nobody had ever seen before.
That's right.
There's statistics on the number of people that left their jobs because they thought, what, there is more to life than this. And I think the pandemic put things into perspective, especially when people were losing loved ones to this horrid virus. And then we talk about the relevance of jobs, right? And what can your employer do, and what can you do? And it talks about how you can have the maximum impact in changing things for the better.
Mm-hmm. I love some of the titles you've got for some of these chapters. Like I'm just gonna pick a few. Like for example, this one's same shit, different day. Right? I want to be appreciated. Like out of my depth. You're saying stuff about stressed out, bad habits, shifty salespeople. Like these are the words people use in the workplace.
Yep.
Right. And it was like, it was funny when I was reading through it. I was like, this is so cool. Right. and I think that's so important. Like, like what you said there about turn your hate into love. One of the common kind of words we use around quite a lot is, do what you love. Right. And, because if you can do that, you're most likely going to feel more fulfilled in life. And with this book, it's like it's allowing you to understand not just work dynamics, but how you could relate to that, but then also help you align with the things you really want to do. So it's a powerful book in the sense that if people read it, I feel that they're going to be able to actually apply for the jobs that they want to apply for. Right. And actually try to pursue the careers that they want to pursue, as opposed to, they feel that they can't do it. So they're just stuck in one place. Right. Yeah. And I think it would you could tell, you could just tell just by some of you could just pick a chapter at random and you can tell that it's like, it's a guide. It's a brilliant guide, oh man, I'm just so excited. I can't wait to actually read each part, because I just feel that so many people are going to benefit from it, Lex. It's I just wanted to share that.
Thank you. And I think the humbling fact is that not only does the title click with people instantly, but so do the situations, and the situations are close to home to everybody. I'm pretty sure most people would have gone through most of those things at some point in their career, if they've been in a career long enough. And if they're early on in their career, then my suggestion is read this book. If you haven't experienced any of these things, read this book so you know how to deal with things straight away, right? So that you don't have to go through the pain and suffering that the people that have gone through it and lent their expertise and the wisdom that's managed to kind of trickle its way into this book. This is a super condensed, high concentration formula for all the issues, and the tincture for the remedy, and the tincture of that is what is presented in this book in each of the situations. So before you even have to go there and try to remedy a situation, you should read it and become aware that there is a possibility that this could potentially happen. And the moment you recognize it, then you know what to do. And if you forgot what to do, then you've got a guide that can help you. So,
Mm.
one of my dear friends actually referred to this as a recipe book for different situations at work. So
Yeah.
that's one way of looking at it.
Mm.
You want a recipe book for let's just pick one at random. Oh, same shit, different day. That's come up. How do you deal with that? How do
Mm.
you deal with that? What can you do differently? So one of the big premises that this book's based on is, if you do the same thing, you'll get the same outcome. But if you want a different outcome, you must do something different.
Mm.
So you have to change something. And that change means you've got to put some energy into it. You've got to put some time into it. And you might have to have some courageous conversations. But you've got to have these courageous conversations with diplomacy. You've got to have those courageous conversations with congruence in ecology with the people in your workplace or in your business if you're running a business, so that you can get a positive desired outcome that's beneficial for all. And this book isn't about just every man for itself. This is about every one for all and all for one.
Mm.
you know, Organizations, unless you're a one-man band or one-person band, you don't need to worry about these things. Maybe these are some things that will help with your clients, for instance, or your suppliers. But when you're running an organization, you've got two or more people, all of a sudden you're going to have dynamics.
Mm.
And
Mm.
even if you're running a business with your best friend and you always get on, when you're put under pressure, one thing martial arts has taught me is when you're put under pressure, the worst side of you will come out.
Mm.
Right? What happens when you get put under pressure in a workplace environment? Your worst side will come out.
Mm.
So, in order to put your best side forwards, you need to start to temper your temper, as I like to say. In other words, you need to cultivate control over yourself so that you can handle the situation wisely as possible. When I first started in my career, no, I wasn't wise. I was naive. I was hot tempered. I wanted to move fast. I wanted quick progress and so on. I mean, who doesn't really? And it takes experience and wisdom to kind of start to not necessarily slow down, but take things at a regulated pace at which you can do things with wisdom,
Mm.
put your best side forwards, able to handle situations with more Zen-like qualities, so that you create a calm, collaborative, and conducive environment for everyone to not just survive. We're not talking about survival. We're talking about thrival. We're talking about thriving in an organization, so that your organization can thrive. When organizations thrive, they should also, pay it back to the employees. Uh,
Mm.
so this book is, talking about the nurturing ethical entrepreneurship elements within organizations as well, because the way organizations are running right now, over the last 27 years that I've been working in the corporate environment, and this isn't just for corporates, any environment. And it doesn't matter about what color you are, whether you're a blue collar or white collar or any other color. Um,
I was
every,
going to say because like even business owners who are looking to scale and grow their business and bring people on board,
yeah,
they're gonna get a business owner. It's funny, like it's like an employee goes to work, right? Some of them say, okay, I want to set up my own business, so because they don't like the corporate space and all that kind of thing, they go off and set up their own business, right? They then end up creating a corporate themselves, right? And and it's like, dude, what? Why are you saying this stuff was rubbish when you go and create your own rubbish in a sense, right? Do you know what I
yeah,
mean? So
yeah.
it's a good book for like business owners, as you're saying, because it allows them to understand what could potentially come along the way as they scale as well, right?
Yeah. And it's funny, you've just spoke about how, you know uh, people recreate what they know. Even
Mm.
if they think they're going to do it better, they're literally recreating what they know, but maybe slightly better, but still recreating the same thing. And if anybody's ever suffered any kind of trauma in life, the likelihood of that person repeating and perpetuating the same trauma to somebody else is very high. It's like the example of a kid that gets bullied at school. A kid gets bullied, obviously doesn't like it, and then just because that person doesn't have any control, that person then later on in life becomes a bully because that bullying gives that person a sense of control.
Yeah.
This is where the bullied becomes the bullier, right? And so we have to if we want a different outcome, like I said, we need to change the way we do things. We need to break that cycle. In order to break that cycle or break the pattern, we have to be able to see the pattern.
Yeah.
And the pattern, if I hadn't seen a pattern, I could tell you this wouldn't exist. If there was
Mm.
no pattern, this would not exist. But because there is a pattern, it exists. It just happened to be that I got
And it resonates with so many people
yeah,
because even just like sharing this at the moment with just the people we have, everyone, it's just like they seem to get it as soon as you mention it, right?
yeah.
So it's undertones that there's something there that exists that needs to be addressed and it hasn't been. And this is an opportunity for that to play out in a good way.
Absolutely, absolutely. So the other element of that is, so we talked about the nurturing ethical entrepreneurship element of it. So doing things, running your business using a nurturing, caring perspective, and behind that having a strong code of ethics. Um, and then the second element of this is using a corporate consciousness. So having looking at your business not just from a profitability standpoint, because you know
I was going to say, what's corporate consciousness? Like anybody who's like thinking, oh, they've not heard that term before, or
well, before I go into that, I think I'd like to just reference Bob Marley. Bob Marley, was asked a question, by somebody, say somebody asked an interview once asked him, "Oh, you must be rich," and he said, "Well, what is rich?" He said, "Yeah, a lot of money." And he said, "What is money?" He says, "Numbers." I said, "What is numbers?" He says, "Just digits." And he goes, "How many digits are there?" He goes, "There's infinite." So if digits are infinite, so money is infinite, right? When do you know when you're happy, right? You're never going to know when you're happy, right? Those people that got a lot of money want more, right? Those people that got a hell of a lot of money want more. I mean, when do you stop, and what do you do with that? Money and wealth is energy, and energy is a responsibility. You have to be able to manage that in a responsible way. Now, just to accumulate that is um, almost a disrespect to the energy that is money. Therefore, we have to use that money in a conscious way, because everything that you do has a consequence, right? Everything that you don't do has a consequence, right? So what we're saying is with the corporate consciousness is running businesses not just by looking at balance sheets and these black and white numbers, but there's more to it than that. There's much more to it than that. There's a
the
beautiful
wider impact.
yeah, there's a beautiful example in the book about this company called I think it's called NextGen, off the top of my head, and how they were in a financial spot and how they got out of it. Not only did they have to find a way to save $10 million, in order to stay afloat, they use some corporate conscious methods to not only save $10 million, I think they managed to save $20 million as a consequence of doing something that wasn't just about balance sheet. Now, let me give an example. If in organizations you might have a department, that department helps build up the organization, happy days, then they spur off another department and that department then starts to do well, or maybe it's not doing well, right? Or maybe there's many different departments. The originating department then starts to help a secondary department. That now starts to become the forerunner, right? And then what happens is, because on a balance sheet, the other department might not be performing so well because it's put its resources into helping another department. And if you look at the balance sheet, the originating department might be the one that's actually underperforming. In in the balance sheet mentality, what happens is that that department is the one that's going to get wound down or streamlined. Okay. And I've seen this time and time again. So, first thing that goes is headcount. Okay. People get chopped because take out the resources, all of a sudden you can restore the balance sheet so that department looks like it's not posting so many bad losses anymore. But you've just let a whole bunch of people go, a whole bunch of expertise and wisdom just, as I say, brain drain out the organization, where that department could have potentially been the one responsible for setting up another department or many other departments. And it's, people might say that's unfair or unjust. Well, there's no consciousness around that. So this company that I was mentioning earlier that managed to save more than 10 million, they need to save 10 million. So what they did, they were in a spot and they first of all asked everybody if we could kind of reduce the number of days that everybody worked. So they said, let's go down to 4 days. So automatically you're saving 20% on resource costs because people are only working 4 days now, not on the 5 days. So, they're saving 20% on resource budget. And then what the CEO decided to do, because the CEO was kind of being forced to try and cut some departments, cut some headcount. And he said, no, I'm not going to cut headcount, but we're going to try and do this together to try and help one another. And another thing that he did was he said, so if you've got holidays and you want to sell your holidays, let's say you need the money and you want to sell your holidays, you can sell it to somebody that can afford to buy them. So the people that had more money were happy to take and buy holidays of the people that needed the money. So the people that needed the money were happy because they were getting rid of their holidays because they needed the money more. And the people that needed the holidays were happy to buy the holidays from somebody else. And that way, they also managed to keep people happy at work in that way. Oh. Within the year, they managed to save 20 million rather than 10 million. And it was because the CEO made a conscious decision not to cut staff willy-nilly. It just wasn't an accounting decision, right? He took a conscious decision where he thought, do you know what? I've got livelihoods, right, that I'm responsible for, and I don't want to have them have a negative impact on their livelihoods. Why can't we all bear a little bit of the burden and spread it out a little bit across the whole organization and then see where we go? They managed to save $20 million that helped them really kind of rise and is one of the top employers to work for in the US now.
Wow.
I think it's Next Jump. Is it Next Jump or Next? Yeah, Next Jump. And that company, I've been watching that company for a few years now, because I also mentioned it in one of my other books as well. And that company is still one of the top employers in the US because they do things with a corporate consciousness. They use consciousness. They don't use just a black and white financial accounting, lens. Because these conscious beings, the employees that are there, they're much more than just a number on a balance sheet. So one of the situations is, I feel like a number. How many people just feel like a number in a large organization? They've got a badge, got a number on it, and that's it. It's just a number. People might not even know who that person is. Because there's so many people in an organization and all of a sudden, they're disposable, just, treat like machines. So again, another one of the situations is I feel like I'm being treated like a machine. So these are the kind of things that we're talking about in this book. But moreover, given you some pragmatic solutions, pragmatic actions that you can take, and directly, indirectly, to help improve your situation or improve that particular situation. And the truth of the matter is, when you're experiencing something at work, it is not necessarily just one of those situations. It could be a combination of those situations. So, scour through the book, find the appropriate references for the different situations, and take the collective advice and prioritize what you think would be most accessible for you to do, and then go do it. Like I said, with congruency and ecology, right?
Yeah.
Congruency and ecology. Congruency means that you do it in a congruent way. So you're not going to knock heads with people, but you're gonna harmonize with people. Okay, right? So congruency is about harmony, and ecology means to create a win-win. It's not, if everybody uses the same attitude about what's in it for me, all of a sudden everybody's fighting to try and get something. And one of the biggest examples of this is the pandemic, is the freaking toilet roll issue.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
We laugh at it. We laugh at the absolute stupidity on toilet rolls. Yeah. Right. And how people thought, before anything became scarce, toilet rolls was the number one. Not food, not water, right? Not clothing, nothing else. Toilet paper. I mean, this is, where people's mentality was at that time. It was literally in the sewers. Right. We're trying to kind of give perspectives on how to elevate your perspective and elevate your consciousness in that respect, so you can operate in your workplace at a higher level, not just physically, but mentally and spiritually. And that will have emotional effects on you as well, when you know that you're doing something right. Because the thing that's always keeping us in check is your conscience. Now, when you do something that's out of kilter, that's going to create a negative effect. Guess what? Your conscience is like this voice that's sitting on your shoulder that's saying, shouldn't have done that, man. And it's heavy as well. So way down on your shoulders, and you'll feel it, right? You'll get headaches, you'll get neck pain, you'll get shoulder pain, right? Because the emotion sits right up there, okay? Until you resolve it. And then you'll feel light, until you've absolutely absolved it and just alleviate that, dissolve it away. So rather than get into that situation in the first place, the idea is to see it, or learn about how to do it in a conscious way. And so that's really kind of one of the strongest kind of mechanics that this book underpins and is written in. For those of you guys that will read this book, you'll notice, that is a common thread throughout the whole book.
That totally makes sense to me. I mean, it's interesting hearing that, and even like relating back to, so when I moved from one company to the other, when I moved into the second company, I was quite early in the team. So there was a small team at the time, right? And what that meant was that it gave us the chance. Well, I think unconsciously, subconsciously, I kind of saw what was going on at the previous place. It was great, but there was all these little things in between which were causing, like you said, toxic people, conversation. You think, why are people behaving and doing things like that, right? So I think I had that in mind. And when I went into the new place, because I was like, we had a small team. That was literally like the fourth person in the team, before we grew it to like 30 or something, and it gave me the chance to kind of shape the company, not the company, but the group culture, right? And so I started doing things like, like bringing food. So on a Friday, everybody ended up bringing food or something, or was sharing it. There's chocolates and sweets available all the time, right? And even to the degree where, if I heard something going on in the team, I would I was creating like these motivational Monday emails that I sent out to the whole group, right? And it would address the things I was hearing and concerning. So, for example, if I heard somebody saying something to someone, I put a quote in to say, what you see in others is a reflection of what you see in yourself,
Yeah.
right? It's like these little things that people, they just start thinking, oh, wow. And the group culture that we ended up making, right, was amazing. It was amazing. So, like you said, like if you read the book, it gives you an insight into potentially how you can shape, from a leadership perspective, how you can shape that group dynamic, right?
Yeah.
And trust me, when you have a group that's all in sync, oh my goodness, the workplace is an amazing place.
Yeah.
Seriously. We
Absolutely.
used to go lunch, we used to have foosball games, and we were like the best team when it came to foosball, right? But it's just a shit, and I loved working there. It was just brilliant, you
Yeah,
know?
no, that's what we're talking about is, when you spend so much time in an organization, you cannot just treat it like a sterile part of your life, which is, disconnected from emotion. And organizations are criminal in doing this and saying that this is a workplace, this isn't no place to be emotional and things like that. And let's face it, we number one, there was a huge study done over a decade ago, and there's been a recent series on British TV about the blue zones, where they talked about um, the areas in the world where people live way over 100 years old. And then
Mm.
there was a study done in parallel with that, where they were thinking that, well, if people are living over 100 in these areas, let's ask you the question, where are people dying the youngest? And and the number one reason why people live the longest and why people live the least was the same, and that was related to community. People lived the longest because they had strong, supportive, community loving communities, and people lived and died youngest when they had no community support.
Wow.
Okay, so let's face it, we are community beings, right? We are relationship needing beings. We need that, right? We need that, and we can't survive with that. That studies prove that quite
Mm.
clearly. And it's probably the largest study of its kind. So there, I think, is a series on Netflix actually.
Right.
I can't remember what it's called off the top of my head, but it's definitely worth looking into that. But the strap line on that is something blue zones. So look up blue zones, and then so that's one aspect of it. Secondly, our midbrain, right? So we've got our cortex is our frontal cortex and parietal cortex and so on in our brain. They're responsible for conscious thought. But our midbrain, really deep down in the center of our brain, right, is something called the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is our emotional brain or our emotional mid center. All of our emotional thoughts go through there. Now, the emotional thoughts are subconscious. So, compared to conscious thoughts, your emotional thoughts are much faster. The subconscious thoughts are so fast. So when we respond to things, or should I say, react to things, we're reacting through our emotional centers. And we all know somebody that, talks before they thinks, right? And those people are really emotional, right? Because they've got really strong wiring through the emotional, the midbrain. Those people that have intelligent responses are those people that have practiced to become aware of situations that are potential triggers, and they will trigger not a what we call an ab reaction, that means a negative reaction, but an intelligent response, a pre-trained intelligent response to put the best side forwards. So what we're saying here is, right, try and put your best side forwards by coding intelligent responses to certain situations at work, but you need to be aware of them before that happens.
Yeah.
But if it's too late, then, or if it's happening right now, then refer to the book at your earliest possible convenience, so that you've got the wisdom and the advice from over 27 years of experience. And I said, not just my experience. You see, my experience doesn't mean I personally experienced everything that I've written about. My experience means I have witnessed and been party to or part of somebody, whether it's in me or in somebody else, going through those things, right? Hence, I have firsthand experience of that. Yeah. So that doesn't mean I personally had each and every one of those traumas or negative situational experiences, but I've experienced it potentially through a third party, right? Maybe a colleague, maybe, like I said,
Students.
my
Yeah.
brother, my students, and family and friends and things like that. And they're all teachers. They've all been teachers helping give me this uh, knowledge base from which I've tried to filter the wisdom out of that to help give that to you, the readers and the viewers, to help you in your careers and in your businesses, to help you turn things around. And it's the my if you were to ask me the question, what's the one thing that causes problems? And the one thing is fear. So always fear, always fear. Somebody that's fearing something. Yeah. Somebody that is fearing something and is giving you a hard time over that. Okay. And I think what you need to find is that fear that that person is afraid of. Okay. But you see, the biggest myth here is you don't need to be afraid of your fear. You can embrace your fear and start to love it and change it into love itself and transform that. And that is really powerful. That is beyond the basic recognition of a fundamental emotion, right? Is when you see an emotion, you feel an emotion, you hear an emotion, you smell an emotion, and you completely look at that in a whole new way. You embrace it, and then you change it,
Mm.
and you get a different outcome.
Yeah.
And when you start to do that with people that are going through a fear complex or whatever might be triggering that for them, and you can start to ask yourself the question, where is the love in that? So if somebody's micromanaging you, so one of the sections is one of the sections is about micromanagement. What's that one called? It's under the practice section. Da, 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 da,
I think it was just micromanagement.
yeah, I think it's just micromanagement, right?
Yeah. It's
Oh, I
way
hate.
earlier.
Yeah, micromanaged. Mike, it's just micromanaged.
Micromanaged. Yep.
It's the first one in the people in the practice section. Um, is why are they micromanaging a person? Well, it might be out of fear that that person doesn't trust you, right? Maybe they were let down by somebody else. And it isn't you that they're worried about, but they're just generally overcompensating for something or somebody else that made them look stupid and feel insignificant. Maybe they were disrespected as a consequence. Maybe they lost credibility as a consequence, and they've now taken a overcompensatory strategy to make sure that never happens again. So they micromanage the shit out of everyone, right? So it's not necessarily you. So how do you change that around? Once you understand their fear, their vulnerability, and you can help them become comfortable by helping establish trust with them in that given situation. By ensuring that the things that they fear the most are alleviated by putting measures into place, by making sure that the work you do is giving them the confidence that you are not only doing good work, but you are there to support them and guide them and to make them look as good as possible, because if they look good, you're going to look good as well. And all of a sudden it starts to change and shift people's mindsets and shift people's emotional sets and shift people's spiritual sets. Okay. Right. And as a consequence, it shifts their body set. Right. Um, Because when people are going through emotional trauma, on emotional, negative emotional feelings, those emotions start to accumulate in the body.
Mm.
And as they start to accumulate in the body, it makes people sick after time. After a long time, it starts to make people sick. Okay. So stress starts to cause headaches. The one of the immediate factors that people are stressed is headaches, right? It's just a simple one, right? Skin conditions like eczema and psoriasis start to flare up in certain people when they are stressed out. Okay, they might not even realize they're stressed out. This is the worst part of it. It's a silent disease. Yeah,
Mm.
it's a silent emotional disease that creeps on you, creeps up on you, and kills you from the inside out, and you don't even realize, right? Until your body starts to fall apart, right? So we have to be attuned to our bodies, minds, emotions, and our spirit when we're working, because we've only got so many years on this planet, and we want to try and make sure that those years count, and we develop good relationships. We're allowed to express ourselves emotionally at work, obviously in a controlled way. So don't get me wrong. We don't want people to just go into the workplace and just start to emotionally dump on one another. But it's got to be done in a in a in a in an with a certain level of etiquette in the workplace as well. You can't just go dump all your emotional baggage on people all the time, because nobody likes that either, right? So, and we can be there for one another to support one another through these things, so that actually our days at work count, right? Rather than counting the works that day,
Mm. Yeah,
right?
yeah,
uh,
exactly.
and that brings me onto a point that when you're spending so much time in your job and you leave that job, if you ask yourself the question, what do you remember about that job? Now, that is a huge question. If you've got a business and you're running a business, and one day there's going to come a day where you might be hanging up your gloves. Okay, you might be selling the business onto someone else, or you might be handing it over to somebody else, or whatever it might be, or you just retire and completely leave. Then if you ask yourself the question, right, what do I remember about that business, right? What comes to your mind straight away if I ask you that question? What do you remember about one of your workplaces? What are your most prominent memories?
For me, it was the team. It was the, like, for example, the foosball games, lunchtime foosball games. It was like, we worked hard, but we chilled just as hard. Do you know what I mean? And when we would go lunch, for example, we'll eat lunch together as a team. So it wasn't like you eat at random times. We were there as a team. All of us would go down. If it was 20 of us, all 20 of us would go down, right? And then we had foosball and the fun we had around that table.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then just that allowed us to kind of de-stress and then just get on with it. And when we were actually working, it was like focused. Do you
Yeah.
know what I mean? And that is one of the biggest things. It's just the people. That's the biggest thing I feel for me, is that environment, the people. Yeah.
Absolutely. And again, it's coming back to that point about community and how powerful community really is
Yeah.
in life, both in your personal lives and in your professional lives. And you know what? Some of my best friends are people that I worked with, because I spent
Mm.
so much time with them. I got to know them. I got
Yeah.
to see their worst side because they were under pressure. I got to see their best sides because
Yeah.
they were in the element. Right? And we went through good times and bad times together in a workplace through all the different challenges, through all the celebrations and commiserations that we have in, any kind of project that you might have in an organization.
Yeah.
And as a consequence, you're actually sharing an emotional journey with people. And a workplace is much more than just somewhere you go to earn some money. So hopefully this starts to change the perspective on that. Um, the other thing that I wanted to mention was it's quite interesting actually because it's the title of the book is quite he does hit you in the face. I did think to myself that um
Will
so
it have negative? I was just going to ask you that same question, right? I was gonna say, like, have there been or are there any kind of negative implications of the title, right? And I'm gonna
yeah,
add another bit is that if this book was on somebody's desk, right, and the employer walked past, are they gonna freak out?
yeah. So for the unlearned person, right, somebody that doesn't have an open mind and is quick to judge, they're going to think, oh well, this person clearly hates their job, so there must be a problem. Now, if you leave this book on your desk, and I know a lot of people that just go into their work, whether whether they're uh, in an office job or working some kind of machinery or whatever it might be. If they leave this book lying around, the impression is going to be, oh, that person must hate their job because they're reading a book about I hate my effing job. um, and that it would be totally wrong. If you're For all the listeners and viewers that have been listening to this all the way through, you already know that the depth and the intention behind this book is about love. Therefore, that would be a misinterpretation of the title. And this is where they say, don't judge a book by its cover, right? And this is the one time I would definitely say, if you go on just the title itself, you've missed the biggest trick of this book, right? This
Don't
book,
look at the finger, or you miss all the heavenly glory.
exactly. So that was a Bruce Lee quote where Bruce is this is for the listeners and viewers that are not familiar with this story. This is a Bruce Lee at the if you look at the limited edition of Enter the Dragon. There's a right at the beginning of the movie. There's a scene where Bruce is chatting to his Sifu, and his Sifu is just about to leave, and his one of Bruce's students comes running up to him, and Bruce, says to his student, he points his finger over at the moon, up to the moon, and um, he says it's like a finger pointing to the moon. So the student immediately looks at the finger, and then Bruce slaps him on the top of his head and said, "Don't look at the finger, for you'll miss all the heavenly glory." All
That's a
right.
good impression. Yeah.
So,
Classic, man, legend.
that is not focusing on the finger, is focusing on what the finger's pointing to, is the heavenly glory of the moon. Um, so this book is not about just the words on the on the cover. It's about the loving content inside it. That's has really powerful, inspiring, motivating, educating, and empowering transformational changes that it can facilitate. So, um, the truth of the matter is that yeah, it will have that initial it could have that initial response, but the comeback to that should really be, I want to be a better employee, so I want to figure out how I can face some of the challenges that I face at work, and improve those. All right, to not only be the best employee that I can be, but create the best department or the best team or the best department or the best organization that I'm working in. And I want to contribute towards that. And that is a new conversation. That is a huge conversation. And if employees started to talk like that, all of a sudden, there's now a vested interest in creating a workplace that is in everyone's best interest. And when people start become vested in their business, then employers should vest in their employees too. However, there's loads of different mechanisms by which organizations can do that, and it could be financial, and there's known financial ways to do that as well. And it has to be a nice balance across the board because it's the employees that make the business, right?
Yeah.
The whole book is scattered with inspirational quotes, and there's, if I can find it, Let me see.
So that just like a leads me on to an interesting question somebody might be asking is that do you have to hate your job to read this book? What would you say to that?
No, absolutely not. If you want to be better at your job, then it's best to be able to become knowledgeable in understanding the different dynamics that can work in the workplace.
Mm.
And when they start to happen, you be able to recognize them. Especially if you're in a leadership position, or even if you're in a position where you're working for an organization, where you might feel there's some turbulence every once in a while, be able to read the situation and put your strong side forwards, put your best side forwards by using the wisdom and the experience that's lent in this book. It will make you look emotionally intelligent at work. And that's a huge one, emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
Why? Because you can handle those things with grace. Okay. And also with power as well. Because when you say things sparingly at the right time that have huge impact, um, it's a strong reflection on you and your character. So, what are you doing? We're building character. We're building character here. We're building character. And if that's anything that, if anything, that's one huge positive outcome that you can be sure to
And one of the biggest things on that is like sometimes when you talk about the idea of leadership, employees don't necessarily relate to it because they don't see themselves as a leader. They think they're just there to work, right?
yeah,
But the beauty of this book, from what I can tell from reading and just the conversation we had, is that thing what you said about inspiration. It's when I used to go for like job interviews and stuff at uni. I remember they used to tell us. They said it's about initiative, taking the action, right? And so when you're in the workplace and you take initiative, right? If you see something's not right, you make it better. If you're working around it to improve yourself, improve the environment around you, and you're taking the initiative to do it, that's leadership, right?
yes,
That's
absolutely,
leadership. And
absolutely.
when you do something, it gives permission to other people to do it as well, right?
But at the same time, taking initiative can also be taken the piss by employees as well, right?
Mm,
Where you've got employees taking initiative, and the employees are like, "Yeah, carry on taking more initiative. You're doing more work for me, right?" But not giving anything back in return. Sooner or later,
mm.
intelligent employees, right? Intelligent people will turn around and say, "Hold on a minute, what the fuck?" I'm giving you everything I've got, and you're giving me nothing in return. You
Which
know,
is another dynamic you talk
yeah,
about in the book as well.
yeah, and again,
Mm,
this comes down to the corporate consciousness, aspect of when you're happy to let your employees take initiative, right? Then you should also show some gratitude, you know, because
mm.
the gratitude, or even just a basic acknowledgement and appreciation, is a huge,
Huge.
huge thing,
Yep.
right?
Yep.
Just that on its own will absolve you of having to lay out any money, first and foremost, if that's what you're worried about because you're greedy,
Yep.
right? But when you start to embrace the fact that you've got employees that are willing to take initiative, they show initiative, and is improving your business, then if you were to catalyze that by showing acknowledgement, by showing appreciation, and by rewarding them financially as well, then guess what's going to happen to their initiative? It's just going to go boom, yeah. And when that starts happening, now you're creating a dynamic organization that will grow on its own strengths and its own energy dynamics that you've built into the organization. But some people already have that in them, is recognizing that. And some people, you need to cultivate that in them by nurturing them and
Mm,
helping them see the things in them that work well, the things in them that will make them shine bright so they can lead the way by lighting the way. So there's these are the kind of things that we're talking about in this book, and these are enlightening topics and enlightening perspectives on how to do things. For some people, that are, talk about complete chaos. That's another situation. When you're suffering from complete chaos, when you're in a chaotic situation, and you're overburdened and burnt out, you ain't going to see any of this stuff because you don't even have time to think. Have you ever been in a situation that you're so busy that you cannot process anymore to the point that you're forgetting stuff?
Busy being busy.
Yeah, absolutely. And your brain starts to go into standby mode or sleep mode. You're awake on the outside, you're asleep on the inside. Right? As they say, the lights are on, but no one's in. Right? Right. And that starts to happen, and all of a sudden there's a big fucking problem on your hands. Right. And these people start to go numb. When people start to go numb, you've killed their spirit. You've killed it. You've killed that person. It's murder, right? It's murder of the spirit. Now that's happening all over. You murder the spirit, you murder the emotions, right? It's murder. I mean, there's no crime for that. No one can be accused of any crime on that. Everyone's getting away with it. And that's absolutely wrong, right? That's criminal. It literally is criminal. And, people that are suffering and their spirits are killed, their emotions are killed. Guess what? Somebody's responsible for that. You're also responsible for it to a certain degree within your control. We have to change that. We're in the 21st century. We've got technology that can help make our lives easier, right? There's no excuses. Technology's made things quicker, made things faster, made things more efficient. But why are people suffering more now? Why, when I first went into my career, the pace of life was much easier, right? We had less technology to do, less productivity tools, right? At that time. And now we've got more productivity tools. We're less productive. And how does that work? I'm sorry, but it just doesn't make sense. We had, as a human race, we made leaps and bounds in technology 25, 30 years ago, right? Now, are we making leaps and bounds in comparison? No, we're just making, short steps now, not massive leaps anymore. So why is that? Well, if you're going to kill the inspiration in the people and you don't want people to think, then carry on the way you are. But if you want to create an environment which is thriving, and remember, for business owners, employers, senior managers, leaders, that means more money in the pocket. If you want to turn a blind eye to that, then that's up to you. But it's not sustainable. It's not sustainable. And if you've got toxic people that are in it for themselves and they're not willing to take a new view to it, then they are obstacles to that kind of dynamic growth, to that conscious growth. So we have to change the way we think about things. So it's something worth looking at. It's something worth bearing in mind, because the mechanics, the sociology of work that we talk about in the book is massive. And when you start to go through some of these situations, you'll realize you'll have your own realizations, and there's going to be realizations that are beyond the scope of the book as well. And to that extent, we're open to inquiries and suggestions as well. So there's a whole section on inquiries and suggestions, and we just say, look, if you've got any suggestions or scenarios or situations that we haven't covered in the book, or you think of another way to remedy a situation, or some other kind of hateful scenarios that you'd like to introduce in there, then send us an email to info@martialmindpower.com. And we'll collate all the information. And, this is why we've called this the first edition, because there's every potential this will grow over time, because people would want to see other experiences, their experiences incorporated. And for the ones that are most common, we'll collate them and process them, and potentially integrate them into our second edition, if that's the way that it goes. So we're open to that as a consequence.
No, definitely. I mean, Sifu, it's an amazing resource, right? And if people are interested in getting the book, they can make their way over to Amazon. You could get it from Amazon, or go martialmindpower.com. It's available. The links are all there for you to get that. And like Sifu Lak Loi said, if you want to get in touch, just drop an email to info@martialmindpower.com. So Sifu, we've gone into a lot of information here, right? And I want to do something slightly different to what we've done in the past.
Go for
Yeah.
it.
And we're going to do a quick fire round. Yeah.
Go on.
So I'm going to put you on the spot. It's only 5 questions,
Yeah,
right?
go on.
But it's a quick fire. And it's good because it's like a summary, right? So, question 1. Okay. What is this book about in a nutshell?
Put your best side forwards.
That's what I'm saying. I've written that down. I'll put that down. Strong, make your best side forwards, right? And also make your strong side stronger.
Strong side stronger. Why not?
Awesome. Awesome. Okay. Why did you write the book?
To help people alleviate suffering in a workplace.
Who is it for?
Anybody that's looking at going into business or a job, or currently in a business or a job, or anybody that's got any resources that they have to manage, whether it be client side, in-house within an organization, suppliers, or anyone in there in the business chain, front to end.
Mm-hmm. And how does the content in the book work?
Read the introductory chapters to understand the problem statement around problems in workplaces and businesses, and then to turn hate into love. Go to the relevant situation within the book, and as we mentioned earlier, they're split by different categories like people, place, position, practice, pay, planet, and so on. And then go to the relevant situation that you're struggling with, and then read that section.
Ooh. And what if it doesn't work?
Well, what if it does? Right? So here's the thing, you if you do the same thing, you get the same outcome. To get a different outcome, you need to do something different. So to do something different, you have to be willing to try something different. And there's a beautiful quote that goes along the lines of what if it doesn't work? We say, my dear, but what if it does? And I think really that kind of, for me, sums up that sometimes you have to be, like in some tarot card sets, you have the fool, and the fool, usually people think, oh man, I'm not a fool, or I don't want to be the fool, I don't want to be the silly idiot. But actually what the fool means is that you're informed, but you're brave enough to take the leap of faith, and take that action. And only then is there any possibility that that can amount to something greater than what you already have. So take the leap of faith. What have you got to lose? Or more importantly, are you willing to stay where you are? Because the biggest crime is knowing there's a problem, and in a year's time you're in the same problem. I mean, that's not even a crime, that's just stupidity, right? Why would you allow yourself to suffer when you can change and improve the situation? Okay.
Yeah.
And on the flip side, but what if it worsens the situation? Well, you need to take an educated assessment of what's going on, make an informed decision based on the presenting facts. Okay. Yeah. And based on that assessment, based on making an informed decision, take positive action that will only have a win-win effect. If you take action that will have a win-lose effect, that win-lose effect could also be reversed against you, right? So this is why you got to have the congruency and ecology. Without the ecology, creating a win-win situation for all parties involved, there is a possibility whatever you're trying to achieve might backfire because it wasn't done with the right intention, ecological intention in the first place, right? So if it backfires, shame on you because you try to make it suit you, not everyone.
Yeah, amazing, man. Amazing. And you don't know what you don't know. So read up, get informed.
Yeah.
And on that note, Sifu, any last words before we sign off? Because we can talk about so many topics. I mean, we're most likely going to be doing more podcasts around this at some stage with different questions and all that kind of thing. So before we sign off, any last words?
Yeah, actually, I've got a couple of quotes. Einstein said, "Insanity is doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results." Erin Hansen is a one that said, "There is freedom waiting for you on the breezes of the sky, and you ask, 'What if I fail?' Oh, but my darling, what if you fly?"
That's amazing. And guys, like, if you want to get any of his books, right? Look, this is like, he's a library book, your library. Just, just make your way over to Amazon. They're all there. martialmindpower.com. And on that note, Sifu, I think we'll close it there. And then goodbye to everyone. We'll chat to you and see you again soon.
Yeah, thank you very much for listening. I hope this has a positive transformational effect in your personal and professional lives. Thank you.